What's up, everybody? I'm John Pounders with Now You See TV, and today we have one of my favorite guys to listen to online. He's he's done a lot of things. I guess he's most known for the Rise and Fall, the Return of the Nephilim, Babylon Rising, The First Shall Be Last, Archon Invasion, all these different films that are really good. If you guys haven't checked them out, I'm sure most of you guys that listen to this, I've also heard of Rob Skiba, but he's also in the process of trying to produce a movie called Seed, which I'm looking forward to. I know that's going to be a big production, a lot of money involved there, and so hopefully we'll get to that. But today we're going to be talking about a subject that is hated by so many people, and I'm not exactly sure why. Now my disclaimer is I don't know enough about it to be either way, and that's the way all of us kind of should be about a lot of subjects, because most people that are listening to the show are not scientists. You're not mathematicians. Some of you might be, but there's nothing wrong with looking at things from a perspective of you might have been taught wrong your whole life. And that's kind of what we've all done in a way when we came to Christ and when we came to the Messiah. We looked at things and realized that's not exactly the way things are, and we decided this is how we're going to live our life. So this subject right here, I've heard it called demonic. I've heard it called just plain out idiotic, a lot of different things. But how much do you guys really know about this subject? Because I can't say that I know enough about it, but I really don't understand the people getting mad about it. But anyway, Rob, how's it going, man?
Good, John. How are you doing?
Doing good, man. I was talking to a friend the other day, and he was like getting real heated about it. He's like, "There's no way." I'm like, dude, did you invent this theory? Do you have stock in this? If it goes bad, are you going to lose money? Or what's the deal? Why are you so mad?
Well, I've joked about it before, but and for your listeners and viewers right now, what are we talking about? Well, we're talking about the concept of the flat Earth, right. And I've said it many times before. I'm like, if you want to see somebody get in touch with their inner psycho, all you have to do is mention that you're looking into it, and you watch them manifest. A freak show right in front of you.
Yeah,
will go completely insanely berserk. And you're like, well, dude, all I'm doing is looking into this. What's the problem here?
Yeah.
For me, I'll just tell you up front, when I did the research for my first book, Babylon Rising, it was at sort of the tail end of an awakening that rocked my world, and that was the realization that 9/11 was an inside job. And that happened to me on a plane ride to. I was in a mission field. I was a multimedia missionary, part of an international missions organization, and my job was basically to get entrenched with the missionaries in the foreign field, and to do what they do, but also to document it on video, and then come back and create videos that would help them to raise awareness and support for what they did. So I was blessed and privileged to travel to about a dozen countries, almost a dozen countries, in 6.5 years. And I was on a plane to Kazakhstan, 2006. And it's a very long flight. And the people behind me, for like the entire flight, were talking about how 9/11 was an inside job. Now, at that time, in 2006, I still believed the official story, that it was box cutter toting terrorists that hijacked planes and blah, blah, blah. And I was in the Boy Scouts. I'm third generation Army guy. I served in the military, in the Army for 8 years, about as patriotic as they come. And my attitude was, how dare you say that? How dare you even insinuate? I just wanted to turn around and smack both of those people,
right,
for the whole flight. And of course I didn't, but I'm sitting in my seat listening to them, fuming mad. And their whole thesis was based around Michael Moore's documentary, Fahrenheit 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did my job in Kazakhstan, but that conversation was stuck in my head from the flight there. So on the flight back, I'm thinking, man, I'm gonna debunk those guys. I'll never see them again. But in my own mind, I needed to debunk what I was listening to them say,
Right.
So I'm not a Michael Moore fan, but I did go get that film, Fahrenheit, because I wanted to see what, firsthand what they were talking about. And at the same time I rented that movie, I also rented Fahrenheit 9/11, which was sort of the debunk of his video. But it didn't answer all the questions for me. In fact, it raised more questions. And that sent me down hopping down a bunny trail that wow. I saw Loose Change. That was, for a lot of people, that was the gateway video for a whole lot of others. But that was the first time they really put it in a concise way that really made a lot of sense and brought a lot of questions to my mind that I had on the day of the event. I remember watching things on TV on 9/11 going, that can't happen. Like, watching buildings fall at free fall speed after office fires, because, I mean, the jet fuel burned off in the first few seconds. So there's no way you're going to tell me the jet fuel melted the steel. I mean, that was burnt up almost immediately. And I could tell you stories about that, but I won't waste time on it. Right, but I had an incident where I got doused in jet fuel myself when I was as a helicopter mechanic before I became a pilot. And was very afraid because I knew what the flashpoint was, and it was in wintertime, and all I needed was a little bit of static electricity to go off of my flight suit, and I'm up in flames, So, I became intimately aware of jet fuel at that moment. And, needless to say, I didn't buy the story that the jet fuel caused anything, other than the initial explosion. And, of course, the impact of the planes caused the damage. But after that, we're watching oxygen-starved, coal-burning, or cool-burning, I should say, office fires. And in less than an hour, these huge buildings came down in free-fall speed into a pile of ash in their own basement. And then later we find out that a paper passport, and not just any passport, it was like the passport of the terrorists, was. And I'm like, how did I ever believe this crap? And that's when I began to realize, okay, it is so easy for us to be lied to and to buy whatever people are selling us. And that made me extremely skeptical of my government. And then when I, a few years later in 2009, going to 2010, when I got real intentional about doing a lot more research on all this stuff, realized all our presidents are related to each other. And I used to be a very politically active guy, rock the vote and tea parties and, all that stuff. And, I got my sticker, I voted, blah, blah, blah. And by the way, I just went like this. So some knucklehead out there is going to say, whoa, Rob's doing 666. All right, you're an idiot, okay? If you're gonna say that, you're a freaking moron, okay? Talking about a sticker. I've had some guy just post a video because I was talking about something and I went like this or whatever. And they're like, oh, look, he's got skulls behind him. And he's got the pyramid. See that thing above his head? The light's like a pyramid. It's like he's doing six. I'm like, people, all right,
Dude, I feel you, man. I did that one day. I was just talking and I was just going like this.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to make a point and like, dude, and like the next thing you know, I'm a Satanist. I'm throwing up 666s all over the place. I'm like, wow, man.
Yeah, I did a talk and I have a banner behind me for my book. This is my Babylon Rising, the first class. And so right behind me, all you see basically was the all-seeing eye and the poster behind me. I'm doing this whole lecture, and they're like, see, he's in the Illuminati, and he's flashing. I'm like, get a clue. If you're going to say anything, before you even open your mouth, do like a half an hour of research.
Right.
Like my entire book is exposing that crap.
Yeah. I mean, you could catch Illuminati signs in video any day. I mean, it's one thing to take a picture doing that, you know what I mean, or something, but like,
if I'm doing this or this kind of thing, or okay, right. But come on. Yeah. So anyway, I'm just saying that as a disclaimer because I know some knucklehead out there is going to take that freeze frame and do a whole video on it. But I did that all that research for that book, and I got to the point where everything we've been taught is a lie. In church, in school. On TV, the media, our government, all the media is owned by 6 corporations. All our presidents are related to each other. Your votes don't really matter, And so when it came to the subject of flat Earth, of course, I had the same exact knee-jerk reaction everybody has. That's crazy. That's stupid. As a saying, what are you talking about? Why? It's the 21st century. But at the same time, I had in the back of my head going, well, what if that's a lie too? I mean, everything else is. It seemed like. So in a way, I didn't have as much cognitive dissonance to overcome as the average person who's going through life believing what the media says, believing what their teachers told them, believing what comes from the pulpit, never questioning anything, just believing everything is, hunky-dory and rosy and, nobody would ever lie to us.
Right.
So I find the most resistance in the greatest measure of psychosis comes from the people who spend a lot of time watching TV and believing it after television, it's tell-a-vision. They're telling you what they want you to believe, and it's actually a form of entrainment. In fact, when I sort of weaned myself off of television, the only thing I watch now is like on Netflix or something, without commercials,
Yeah,
and just like Everybody Loves Raymond before I go to bed or something. I don't watch much, but I watch now. I become a people watcher, and I watch people who watch TV, and they are completely zoned out, hypnotized drones.
Mm-hmm.
They're practically drooling on themselves. And when you study how television works, it is a form of entrainment.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes, if I remember, I did the research a while back, so forgive me if my numbers are wrong, but I think it takes about 7 to 10 minutes or something like that to put you into a state of entrainment. And that's about, for an hour-long television show, drama, that's about the spacing that you have between commercial breaks. Mm-hmm. And then the commercials put all the stuff, buy this, you got to have this, and oh, you got this ailment, well, get this drug. And then they give you all of the side effects. Side effects may, oh, I got a hangnail. Well, side effects may include blindness, throat cancer, liver cancer, and you may die. But, ask your doctor if this is right for you, and you're like, oh, I must
get this pleasant music behind it while they're talking about it. And
everybody's smiling, I'm going to get rid of my toenail fungus, but I'm going to destroy my liver, And people are mindless drones going out and buying this stuff, and the commercial breaks only last long enough so that it doesn't pull you out of the entrainment.
Right.
They put you back in for another 7 to 8 minutes or so. And many people, statistics say they watch 4 to 5 hours of TV a day. The Nielsen report talks about the average person watches 4 to 5 hours of TV a day. Well, if you're among that crowd of people who watch 4 hours of TV or so, and then you end your night with the evening news, well, you are completely made into a lobotomized zombie from all this garbage that you just watched for several hours before you're watching the evening news. And then you're watching stuff that's being pumped out by 6 Luciferian-owned corporations. It doesn't matter if you're CNN or CNBC or Fox or whatever. You're getting the same garbage.
Yeah.
And then you try to talk to these people about things like 9/11 or Sandy Hook or any number of other topics, and they are all hook, line, and sinker on the official story. So those are the same people that you get the most pushback when you discuss something like the subject of the flat Earth. And so everybody has a measure of cognitive dissonance that they have to overcome. And then once you get through that, then you can somewhat think rationally enough to at least consider the evidence.
Yeah, at least question stuff. There's nothing wrong with that.
Start questioning it. Yeah. And, a worst case scenario, all you're going to do is prove why you believe we're on a ball. Mm-hmm. Because I don't know about you. I'm 46 years old. I have never in my life questioned it, ever.
Yeah, never. Before, honestly, man, before I saw you post something about it, I never thought anything about it. Then I was like, what is he doing, man? This guy's flipping out on me. And then I started actually looking at it, and I'm like, maybe he's onto something, because honestly, like, at first it was kind of a oddest thing I've ever heard. And then because it's something you don't really think about, but then, man, when you look into it, there's something there. It's not as cut and dry as what people think anyway.
Right. Well, I'll just, for your audience's sake, tell everybody, first of all, I am not a flat earther. I have coined a phrase for myself. Everybody wants to label you, and I've always been resistant to labels. I'm like, don't try to put me in your box. Okay, I'm not going to fit. I have put a lot of content out dealing with the flat Earth, but I've still got questions too. Frankly, I've got more questions than I have answers. Yeah. So I have taken to calling myself a zetetic agnostic. Yep. And what that means is a zetetic is somebody who proceeds with inquiry and investigation. It's basically what the word means. And like agnostic is somebody who doesn't believe they can prove it either way. They're just kind of like, well, I don't have sufficient enough evidence, to prove something. Now, when it comes to my belief in God, of course, I am not an agnostic or an atheist. I'm about as much a believer as you can be. I accepted Christ as my Savior at age 7. Grew up in a Christian home. My dad was a Baptist minister when I was a kid. Been in church my whole life. Been reading the Bible my whole life. So love my Lord and Savior and fully on board with, God. But on this subject, I'm like, well, I'm still questioning this stuff. I created a website called testingtheglobe.com because Paul told us in was it 1 Thessalonians 5:21, I think, to prove all things or test all things, depending on the English translation. So that's what I've started to do. I'm like, wait a minute, I've seen that globe in the classroom since preschool. You know, even before kindergarten.
Yeah.
That thing's always there in the corner. You can play with an inflatable ball of the earth or whatever. Yeah. So it's always been in our face. But have we ever tested it? Have we ever questioned it? And I can say for myself, prior to April of last year, I would say no, never have I ever questioned it.
No, never, man. I was always. It was never something in my mind to even think about. I mean, I've questioned. I can't say I've never questioned the idea of astronauts going to the moon or anything like that before, but the Earth not being round, and honestly, up till recently, I thought the Bible said that the Earth was globular. And if you would get into that a little bit, because most people think that, and most people will say that, but the truth of the matter is that's not what the Bible says.
Yeah, that was the big rude awakening for me. I'll just tell you how I got into the research to begin with. I was heading down to a place to do my taxes. It was about an hour and a half drive. It was April 13th, and I like when I go on a long drive, I like to listen to podcasts and stuff like that. And there's a couple of guys out there that they're my go-to place, to download stuff, and listen to. And Canary Cry Radio with Basil and Gons is one of my go-to places. I like listening to their stuff. And
is that Gons from Face Like the Sun? Same guy?
Yes,
okay.
Gons Shmore. And they had this, interview with Mark Sargent about flat Earth, and I'm going, what? Of course, it's April 13th, so I'm thinking, and it was already pre-recorded, it was already up on their site, so I'm thinking, maybe this was an April Fool's show, maybe they did it for April Fool's Day or something, 2 weeks earlier. So I thought, I'll download this thing. It's an hour and a half or so, and I'll listen to it on my drive. So I went into it rolling my eyes when I realized, okay, this is not a joke. They've got a guy on here that's serious. I'm going, what? So I'm rolling my eyes like this is crazy. But by the end of the interview, now I'm pulling into the place to do my taxes, and I'm going, well, shoot, that guy kind of made some sense, and like the gerbil's running as fast as it can in my head, I'm like, man.
Yeah.
So then I do my taxes, and then I get back in the car, got another hour and a half drive back. So I thought, well, I'm going to listen to this again. So I listened to it again, and it really messed me up. I'm like, okay, all right, I gotta find this guy, and I gotta have him on my show. I gotta interview him too. So I was aware that Mark Sargent was the guy that was on the Canary Cry show, that he, Eric Dubay, and Matt Powerland or Matt Boylan, he goes by both names, were sort of the big three out there talking about this stuff. So I'm like, okay, well, I don't know how to get a hold of these guys, but I'll see what I can do to try to reach these guys. But Mark put his contact information at the end of each of his videos, and he did a whole series of videos called Flat Earth Clues. And I think there was 11 at the time, and I watched all 11 of them. So he puts his contact information right there on the video, so I call him up or email, whatever I did. And anyway, he agreed to be on my show on Wednesday. So I listened to this stuff on Monday on Canary Cry, spent Tuesday watching all the videos and stuff and doing some of my own research. And then on Wednesday of the same week, I had him on my show. And if you go back and listen to the archive, you'll hear me say, look, I still believe very much in the expanding Earth model. The Neil Adams, globe is expanding. In fact, I taught about it this was April 2015. I had taught about the expanding Earth model in December of 2014. So just a few months prior, like 4 months prior, I had taught about the expanding Earth.
Yeah. So if anybody's got stock in the round Earth thing, you had it in there, but
big time. Oh yeah, big time. Big time. I used to teach creation science, for Sunday school and stuff. And I used to do, other teachings outside of Sunday school and stuff, but to mostly young people, teenagers and stuff, because I was impacted by Kent Hovind. in my late teens, early 20s. He came through my little Baptist church in Chicopee, Massachusetts, and did his whole week-long creation series, and I was like blown away. I got I think it was 6 VHS tapes, like 12 hours of Kent Hovind, and I dubbed them to audio cassette and would listen to them till I had them practically memorized. And then I would basically formulate my own teaching sort of around what I learned from him and Carl Baugh and Henry Morris and a lot of the other big name guys up in the creation evolution debate, Right. And so they, like Kent Hovind and Carl Baugh, taught the canopy theory, that the Earth is the firmament right. in Genesis is talking about a canopy of ice that was surrounding the Earth. And again, I taught this myself, that was probably impacted by something and destroyed either from outside or inside when the fountains of the deep broke up and whatever. And the 40 days and 40 nights of raining was basically the ice canopy disintegrating, over and it flooded the Earth. And yeah. it's a pretty cool theory. Believed it my whole life. Pretty much as I was first introduced to it, and so, but I have Mark on, and I'm talking with him, and I'm like, okay, I still very much believe in the globe. I still very much believe this, but tell me more. You got me interested, Yeah. So and as he continued, I'm like, okay. So when I got off with him and finished the interview with him, for the next week or so, he challenged me. He said basically something to the effect of, okay, you say you believe you're on a globe, great. Prove it, but do so without using NASA, the government, or the military. Well, that's a pretty hard challenge because all the information we have about the globe is coming from NASA, the government, or the military. Right. So, my first reaction was, well, we've all seen the picture. In fact, I grew up, but I had this wallpaper on one whole wall of my bedroom. I had like I was a cellar dweller. I grew up in New England. We have basements, and so I had my bedroom, and there was a little room attached to my room that was sort of like where I would do arts. I'm an artist and stuff, and so I do artwork and stuff. And so that whole wall was a mural, allegedly an actual photograph taken on the moon of the moon's surface with the Earth in the background. Yeah. And it was the famous Earth picture we've all seen. Every one of us have seen it. The Apollo 17 picture. It shows the continent of Africa and Antarctica, and it's got sort of a Nike swoosh-looking cloud, right. on it. We've all seen the picture. Well, I mean, I lived with that image in my face like my whole life, So I was already questioning for a number of years now the Apollo missions. I am now fully convinced that the Apollo missions are garbage, that they never did go to the moon, or if they did, they certainly didn't do it the way we were told they did. So I was already on that page. Then I saw footage, I think it was the documentary, A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon, I think is the title of it. I've watched so many, I forget which one now, but it shows the Apollo 11 crew faking the imagery of the Earth by pulling back in the capsule and shooting through an oval window. Mm-hmm. And so if you imagine this is the oval window, and behind the oval window is the Earth, well, and the oval window is kind of at an angle like this, or like this, it's creating it with the iris, set to the illumination on the outside, the whole inside of the capsule is completely black. Right. So the illusion you end up with is that's the Earth. Right. In its whole global sphericity, spherical. Yeah.
And I believe I've seen you recreate that before, or somebody recreated it.
Yeah, I did. Okay. I'm thinking about, this is April. I'm thinking about all these things. I'm watching these videos. I'm like, wow, and then I start seeing all these images, because that's not the only image of the Earth. I mean, Google every now and then for like Earth Day will put up a new blue marble picture, from NASA. This is the latest blue marble of the Earth. Well, if you look through the blue marble series, even NASA tells you these are composite images. And I'm going, wait, what? I mean, why are they using words like composite and 3D and, CG and all that? Why? Wait a minute. And then I see a video on the Jet Propulsion Laboratory website, JPL's website, showing supposedly footage shot by, through, I think it was Galileo, the Galileo space probe, if I remember right, back in the 90s, showing a 25-hour time lapse of the Earth doing a complete rotation. Mm-hmm. Well, but if you watch that video, the clouds are not moving in 25 hours. Right. you're watching this blue marble, and that's all it is. It's a blue marble. It's not the Earth.
Yeah.
Rotating 25 hours, and the clouds are not moving.
Right. And we all know that's not possible. Anybody that knows anything about where clouds form and how they roam, we know that's not possible.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, you could take your iPhone right now, go outside, and set it up to record the sky for an hour, bring it into the computer, and speed it up, do a time lapse of 1 hour, and you can see clouds doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And yet here's the whole Earth in 25 hours, the clouds are not moving. So now I'm like totally wigging out. I'm like, wait a minute. all these pictures of the Earth are garbage. Apollo can't be trusted. I go to the Apollo 17 page of NASA's website and see the famous picture. It's called "A Scientist on the Moon." Download that picture, and because of my other research with UFOs and things like that, there's certain kinds of photo tricks that you can do in Photoshop to tell if a photograph has been tampered with, or
right.
if it's
I saw that video you did too. That was cool.
Yeah, I mean, I did it live on Josh Peck's show.
Yeah.
Showing by adjusting the levels, the contrast, and stuff like that, you can see things that start to manifest that are not immediately visible on the just the picture.
Right.
And when I did that to the Apollo 17, the same mission that shot the one that was on my wall that I saw my whole life and in every textbook I've ever seen, well, I adjusted the levels on this picture. It shows a scientist in the front, in the foreground, and behind him is the Earth. And when you adjust the contrast and stuff, you end up with a rectangular box around the Earth.
Right.
And what? And now other people are like, "Oh, Rob, you're an idiot. That's just JPEG artifacting." And what they accused me of is because when I did that video live with Josh Peck, I zoomed in on the Earth because the Earth, is real tiny behind the guy's head. So I zoomed in on that and then adjusted. And they said, "Well, you should have zoomed back out for the audience, to see, because you'll see the jaggy edges around everything, around the flag, around the flagpole, around the Jeep thing, or whatever, the buggy that they had, and around the astronaut." I said, the problem with that is everything followed, like, okay, if this is an object that was in the scene, you would have jaggies that would follow the contour of the object. So the flagpole had jaggies, but it was following the contour, like steps all around it. They didn't form a whole shape around the flag, or a square around the astronaut's head. And yet on the Earth, when you had a circle, you would think you'd have just jaggy steps all the way around it instead of a rectangular box.
Yeah.
So now I'm going, wait a minute, I can't trust Apollo 17 anymore, which means the picture we've all seen, at least in my mind now, is completely suspect, and all the other pictures are garbage. And then NASA releases a new one, a brand new one. Yeah, here's a new blue marble. And if you look at it, flip the image upside down, the clouds are spelling sex. And you're going...
yes, I believe I saw that too, man. Yeah, that like, for anybody that doesn't know anything about Photoshop and stuff like that, we own a photography business, me and my wife, and when you Photoshop something in there, depending on what type of file or whatever, if it's a PNG or whatever, if you Photoshop something in there, you're going to have, if you get close enough to see the pixels, you're going to have a box around whatever you Photoshop in there. So
unless you're good. And,
yeah.
And I would say that a lot of those pictures that came out were before. I mean, actually, if I remember right, again, I do so much research, so sometimes things get jumbled up in my head, but I believe Photoshop was created the same year the Hubble went up.
Maybe so.
And so, how convenient, or how maybe I should say how convenient.
Right.
I mean, Photoshop made it possible to create very deceptive imagery.
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten to the point, I've been using Photoshop since about 1990, somewhere in the 90s. So, I mean, I live in it every day. Every day I'm doing something in Photoshop. I'm to the point now where if you gave me enough time, I could make you believe anything.
Yeah.
Anything. I mean, I'm getting good enough with the masking tools and stuff like that you're not going to tell. So it makes me wonder, either NASA's hiring incompetent Photoshop people, or the artist who's being commissioned to do this probably had to swear, under a oath of non-disclosure or whatnot, that they can't talk about anything. But their way of exposing their own lie is by putting things in the imagery so that other people will go figure it out.
Yeah.
When you join the military and you get into certain programs and doing different things, a lot of times you'll have various levels of secret clearances, and you have to sign off that you're not going to say anything about this stuff, and if you do, the penalty is pretty severe. So if some of these artists that got hired by NASA had to sign non-disclosures, well, they can't come out publicly and say, hey, this is what I did. I'm the guy that made the Pluto picture look just like Pluto from Disney. But they can put things in the imagery that anybody else who is not completely droned, brainwashed by media, could start doing the investigation and say, wait a minute, why are the clouds spelling sex? Stuff like that. Yeah. So that was the path I went down first. Now, in retrospect, the path that I should have gone down first would have been the scriptures, because that's where I don't get my truth from NASA, the government, or the military, or anywhere else. I get my truth from the scriptures, from the Holy Spirit. That's it.
Right.
So, as a Bible-believing Christian, that should have been the first thing I did. It was like, okay, I'm going to check this with the scriptures. No, the first thing I did was check the photographic evidence. And then I thought, well, okay, now, like, my world, pardon the pun, is turned completely upside down. I'm going, okay, I can't trust the imagery. The photos, the videos are garbage or questionable at best.
Right.
So, in a court, forget it. That's not admissible evidence anymore. So I go to the scriptures. Now, look, I used Isaiah 40:22 like everybody else in their talking parrot has used.
Yeah, the circle of the earth.
Oh yeah, and was it Job 26:7, I think, where it talks about that God hangs the earth on nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Use them all. I've used all those verses. As a matter of fact, on Friday nights I've been uploading videos that I did. I'm making videos out of audio that I did back in 2013, studying the Torah, going through the Torah in a year, and in the they have what they call the half-Torah portions, which are portions from the prophets that go along with whatever the portion is from the Torah. And one of the portions from the prophets that went along with the previous Torah portion I did a few weeks ago was Isaiah 40:22. Isaiah 40:22. And I edited this into the video. I'm going, I no longer believe this, because if you listen to me in 2013, I'm like, see, this is proof that they knew the earth was a globe right there in Isaiah. They knew it, blah blah blah. I'm editing. I'm taking the audio and turning it into video right here on this computer, laughing at myself, going, so I kind of put a disclaimer in the video saying, I'm not so sure we can take this verse that way anymore. Yeah, yes, in 2013, that's what I believed, but in 2015 or 16, no. And I love the King James only folks out there. King James only. That's the only. Jesus and the Apostles read from the King James. It's the only book that's right. Okay, great. Okay, Isaiah is one of the last authors of Scripture to describe the nature of our world. Prior to Isaiah, you had Solomon describing the earth. You had David describing the earth. You had, of course, Moses and the Torah. You have Job. There's several other people prior. Moses, Job, Solomon, David. These guys all had given us quite a bit of detail. And so, then along comes Isaiah. Well, Isaiah is not contradicting the other guys. He's writing in agreement with the other guys. And so when you take the entire testimony of Scripture as a whole, there's no way you can get a ball, much less a spinning heliocentric ball, out of anything Isaiah is talking about. Yeah, and if you're a King James only type, well, God bless you. Welcome to the Flat Earth Society. Because Isaiah 22:18 is where Isaiah and the King James translators knew the difference between a circle and a ball. Because in Isaiah 22:18, it talks about, I'll toss you like a ball. The Hebrew word used there is dur. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that Isaiah is the only guy who used the word for ball in the Bible. Again, I could be mistaken on that, but for some reason I seem to think in my research, I was like, wait, he's the only guy that used the word for ball. Whatever the case may be, the word ball shows up in Isaiah's writing in Isaiah 22:18. So he clearly knew the difference when he got to 40:22, but he didn't use the word for ball when he described the earth. He used chug. He used the word for circle or compass or circuit. Right. The whole idea is something that's circular but not spherical.
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference between a ball and a circle. I mean,
Right.
and round. It's one of those words. Round and circular do, describe things. They're good, but that doesn't necessarily mean spherical. You could have a circular round table that is totally flat.
Right.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
And so now I'm going, what? Because when I went to this, after being totally jaded by everything I saw from NASA, I thought, okay, I am aware of the fact that all of us approach the scriptures with bias. If you come from a dispensational preacher rapture mindset, then that's all you see.
Mm-hmm.
Everywhere you look. That's what it is. If you don't come from a dispensation, or you take those glasses off, you see the same scriptures completely different.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going, okay, Lord, please, whatever biases I'm bringing with me, whatever glasses I'm wearing, remove them from me. Please, just take them off of me, and I'm going to do the best I can to approach your scriptures and just let them say what they say, without trying to put my preconceived biases on it. And wow, man. If people want to see it for themselves, go to testingtheglobe.com/bible.html, because that was my brain dump after I did that. I went. It's not an exhaustive list, but it's pretty extensive. I went through all the scriptures that I could find or remember dealing with the nature of the heavens, the Shemaim, the Rakia, the firmament. Then I did the descriptions of the earth, and then I did the scriptures that dealt with the sun, moon, and stars. And on that blog, I say, look, do the best you can, pray, whatever you got to do to take your preconceived notions out of the picture, and just let the text speak for itself, and see what you come up with. And frankly, there is no way the scriptures even remotely support a spinning heliocentric ball. No way.
Yeah.
And then, I had already done all this research myself and started putting it out there, and everybody started calling me the village idiot, and I'm crazy, I'm insane, whatever. And when I was getting all that verbal abuse, I was looking for the copyright of a picture that I wanted to use, and it was by Logos Bible Software. And, Logos is a highly respected Bible study software.
Yeah, it's huge, man. I use it all the time.
And it's expensive.
Yeah.
They're proud of it.
Yeah.
They're proud of their software. That stuff costs some money. And they've got a lot of very highly respected, credentialed scholars on staff that contribute to the commentary and whatnot that's in that software. And one of the guys that everybody seems to love and respect is Dr. Michael Heiser. Well, when I knew that he was on staff with Logos. I was aware of that. But when I was doing the research to figure out who created the graphic that everybody was passing around on the internet, and to confirm that it was in fact created by Logos Bible Software, and it was, I stumbled across an article that Heiser wrote. I want to say it was 2012 or 13, I think. And he was commenting on another article, which he linked in his own article. This other article is talking about Christians have the courage of your convictions. If you say you take the Bible literally, then you're in a still flat earth under a dome. Yeah. And Heiser was commenting on that. And he also referenced a video in the blog that he wrote that he taught on the subject. So I thought, oh, cool. So I click on that, and it takes me to a Vimeo page of a lecture of his where he's talking about, unquestionably, this guy is a Semitic language expert. This guy intimately understands the ancient Near East culture, reads Hebrew, Sumerian, all kinds of ancient languages. Brilliant guy, lots of letters after his name. The guy spent tens of thousands of dollars to get certified as a smart guy. Okay, right. I'm the village idiot. I went to high school. Okay, don't listen to me. I'm an idiot. What do I know? Here's a guy that paid lots of money to put letters after his name, and people say, yay, he's smart. Okay, he does a whole lecture saying, well, if you say you take the Bible literally, which many Christians, if not most, are fond of saying, myself included, I constantly say because Ken Hovind, among others, were very instrumental in drilling that into me. Yeah. This is our source for truth, and you can trust it, and you can take it literally. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. Well, the problem is if you do that, the Bible, in no uncertain terms, tells you the Earth is stationary. It's not moving. It's not orbiting. It's not rotating. It's set on pillars. It's circular and flat. It's under a dome. Some people get wrapped around the axle about that, but the firmament is an enclosure. Whatever the shape is, to me, the ancients constantly depicted it with a dome, and it's the most logical shape to put over a circle would be a dome.
Kind of like one of those little snowballs or whatever.
Like a snow globe. You end up with a snow globe.
Yeah.
But this is what really got me when I was looking into the firmament issue in Genesis 1, which is a text that I have quoted, written, created PowerPoint presentations around, graphics, motion graphic, all kinds of stuff around the creation, the 6-day creation. I can't tell you how many times I've read the text. I go back and look at it again with an unbiased mindset, taking those glasses off, and 3 times, clear as day, it says that God placed the sun, moon, and stars in the firmament.
Wow.
Not outside and around it. And I'm staring at that text, I'm going, what? What? I'm going back and looking at what I did just a few months earlier in, my other teaching that I did in December of 2014, and, stuff that I've talked about my whole life. I'm going, how did I miss this? And so I'm like, maybe it's the English. It's got to be the English. That's King James, so I'm going to go ahead and check it, against some of the other. They're all saying in. And the reason they're saying in is because when you look up the Hebrew word, let me see if I can grab it here. It's Strong's number 7549, rakia. But when you look it up in that particular passage right there, when it's talking about the firmament, there's a bait in front of it, the letter bait. And when the letter bait precedes a word in Hebrew, it's as a prefix. It serves it means in. That's what it means. When you put a bait in front of it, when it says in the beginning, it's Bereshit.
Mm-hmm.
The bait in the beginning, in the firmament. I'm going, wow. I mean, there's no way now. I can't use that model that I've always believed, the canopy surrounding the earth. It doesn't work. And so what I was like, surely, Kent Hovind and some of these other guys have to figure that out. Well, apparently he did, because I saw a video that he did where he said there must be 2 firmaments. I'm going, what?
Yeah, I saw that video. Either the firmament and another firmament above that. I saw that video. He was talking about that.
Yeah, because he said, the first one, obviously, these guys, and I did too, taught that was the rain of 40 days, 40 nights, was the firmament collapsing, and the ice canopy coming down. And so, but David later says that, praise be, God of the heavens and the waters that be above the heavens. This is in a post-flood context. David's still saying there's still water up there. And so, to get around that, Kent, and hey, look, I love the guy. I love Kent Hovind. Yeah. I wrote to him in prison. I dedicated my books to him. I wrote a thing into him, say, hey, you may not agree with everything in these books, but you are a huge part of making me who I am today in my walk with God and my love for the scriptures. And, I just want to thank you and encourage you. And, I was praying for him to get out and everything else. I love the guy, okay?
Yeah.
But none of us are perfect. I'm not perfect. He's not perfect. Heiser's not perfect. Nobody's perfect. God bless him, but there's no book, chapter, and verse to support the idea that there's another firmament, that there's 2 firmaments.
Yeah.
And that's just the beginning, man. I mean, and when you look at the Job scripture where he talks about he hangs the earth on nothing, that's one of those where you say, see, aha, that proves it. The earth's the earth's hanging in space. Well, not really, because that's Job 26:7. In Job 9:6, he says that he's talking about the pillars of the earth. He also talks about the pillars in Job 38. So the same guy who wrote Job 26 also wrote chapters 9 and 38, fully acknowledges what many other authors of scriptures talk about, the pillars of the earth. So I started looking at it going, well, he can't be contradicting himself. We have to be misunderstanding what's being said here. And so I thought, hangs the earth on, is there another way of looking at it? I believe there is. If I said to you, John, I'm in want for nothing, you would understand, well, Rob doesn't need anything.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Well, I mean, that appears to be what he's saying. The earth is not hung on anything. The same way I would say I'm in want for nothing means I don't need anything. It's the same thing. The earth is hung on nothing. Why? Because it's set on pillars. It is not. It is hung on no thing. In other words, it's not hung on anything because Job himself acknowledges that it's sitting on pillars.
Right, and I don't see how, like, even if it does mean it's hung on nothing, to me that doesn't mean anything necessarily about it being round or globally, or I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I can think of a table, maybe it's sitting up and being hung on nothing. I mean, it's just...
Yeah, it certainly doesn't argue for the spherical nature.
It's not a real strong argument, that's for sure. But yeah,
no, we've got the earth surrounded by water. He's created the firmament to separate the waters above from the waters below. So what I envision in my mind is essentially a bathysphere. If you think of a bathysphere, it's just something that's like this. It's got it's in the water, so there's water above it, and there's water below it. But inside there's an air pocket.
Yeah.
And you could sit in the bathysphere and look at the water that you are, you could be under a lot of water in a bathysphere, but you're protected with this circular opening down below you that you could dive down and swim out if you want to, come back in, Proverbs talks about he inscribed the circle. Well, you look up the Hebrew word for inscribed, it's chakak or kalkak. I'm not sure how you pronounce the word in Hebrew. But if you look up the word, it means to like inscribe just what you think, like carve in stone, to chisel something into something, like the Ten Commandments, were carved in stone.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can't carve a ball into something.
Yeah.
You can carve a circle into something. And that's what the authors consistently say, that the earth was inscribed, carved, a circle on the face of the deep, and he set bounds that the waters would go no further. And I mean, when you take all the descriptions given, man, you end up with a snow globe. And any scholar worth his salt, being honest with the text, not just with the Hebrew text, but understanding the understanding that all the ancient Near East, I would say the whole known world, the ancient world, had some general concept of the same thing. Some of the descriptions are a little bit, they vary, here and there, but pretty much anybody who's being honest with the text, secular, religious, or otherwise, will have to acknowledge, and they do regularly. The only ones that deny are the people that are in denial.
Right.
Because if you do any research on it, you'll see, scholar after scholar after scholar saying, yep, the ancients believed, and the way they describe what the ancients believe is, we're using words like snow globe today because it's an easy descriptive for all of us to, okay, we can associate with that. Of course, the word snow globe never showed up in any ancient text.
Right.
I got some people are going off, man, there's snow globe. Nobody ever said snow globe. I'm like, really? You're going to have, arguments people are coming up with. I'm like, of course they didn't. But they described the earth under a canopy dome structure and flat. That's a snow globe.
Yeah.
In today's, our modern understanding, we have a model. If you're looking for a model, it's a snow globe.
I know one thing I just wanted to add. This is something that just kind of popped in my head. I remember watching your videos, but this was before I went to Texas, and I went there to see your friend Aaron Judkins, and I remember being in the airplane and thinking, I've heard so many people say that you can see the curvature of the earth while you're in an airplane, and I'm looking out there and I'm like, I don't see any curvature. So either I'm not high enough or there is no curvature. And then so I looked into it a little bit more. I saw this video about a guy with a laser. This is kind of like one of the things that kind of blew my mind too. He's shooting this high, powerful laser across this body of water, and there should be a drop of I can't remember how many feet it was exactly, but there was no drop. And I think you showed something where, I don't know if it was you or not, but there was a guy looking out over the ocean with a what are they called? Those, the things that pirates use, binoculars or something. He was looking out over the ocean to see the ship that had gone, and you could see it for miles and miles and miles.
Yeah.
That's
when I first got into the research, that was the knee-jerk response of easily 9 out of 10 people. Mm-hmm. You're an idiot. You're a moron. If you've ever flown in a plane, you've seen the curve of the earth. And to be fair, I would have said the same thing myself. Yeah. I was a helicopter pilot for 6 of the 8 years that I was in the military. When I was a missionary, like I said, I've been to over a dozen countries, or at least about a dozen countries in 6.5 years. And as a public speaker now, I'm in the plane all the time.
And you won't see that. You won't see that curve if you really go out there and look for it.
As soon as you start, you've convinced yourself, as you've been brainwashed that we live on a ball. So naturally, when you go out, you look out the window, you're like, we're in a ball. But we're circling back around. I got a little sidetracked for a while ago. You're talking about that I faked it one time too. The same thing the astronauts did with the window.
Yeah.
And I got introduced to all this in April, and I'm pretty sure it was the next month. I think it was May. Pretty sure it was the next month. I had to fly out to San Diego to do a conference out there. So this is the first flight that I was on after being introduced to the subject. So thinking, like I had I thought prior that I've seen the curve from the airplane. I'm going, well, I'm going to go up there and take pictures of it this time. So we go up and, cruising out to 37,000 feet or so. I'm looking out, I'm looking out as far as I could tell in both directions. I'm like, man, it looks flat.
Yeah.
So I start taking pictures out the window. And I was using my iPhone. And, with your iPhone, you kind of hit the screen to focus on whatever, you can select the area you want it to focus on.
Right.
Well, when I first started to do the pictures, it had auto-focused to the background right away, but I could still, because I was sitting where I was, part of the window was still in the shot.
Right.
So, I'm focusing on the ground, and I'm taking a picture, and all of a sudden, I look at when it comes up on the screen, I'm going, huh. Because the ground was nice in focus, but the window... Yeah,
you can see the silhouette because it was a silhouette.
The curved window was somewhat blurry and totally black because the iris had set itself for the brightness of the outside world. Right. So the inside of the cabin went black. And I'm going, wait a minute. So, I'm sitting here doing all kinds of pictures, out the window, and Sheila, my wife's sitting right next to me. She's like, I'm leaning into her, and she's like, what are you doing? And I said, I'm taking pictures of Mars. She goes, what? And after I took a bunch of those pictures, I pulled them up on my phone, and they're on my website. People can go to testandglobe.com and see it for themselves. If I showed anybody out there those pictures, and just said, hey, check out the latest picture of Mars from the Cassini space probe, or whatever probe's out there now, in the area. Most people would just not even question it and totally believe that what they were looking at was Mars. Yeah. The problem is they were looking at New Mexico at 37,000 feet out the window of my Spirit Airline flight.
Yeah.
And I'm going, how easy is it to just completely deceive? That's a simple photography trick. Never mind what you could do.
Did it with an iPhone.
With an iPhone, no less. Never mind what you could do with, off-the-shelf software you can get for $300. Yeah. Or, download Blender for free as a 3D authoring software. The technology now is so good that, you could fool anybody into anything. So I'm taking these pictures of New Mexico, and it's looking exactly like Mars, and I'm going, man, we really do have to start questioning everything. And we read in Scripture that there's a strong delusion, a great deception. They'll be so great that even the elect, if it be possible, and I do believe it is possible. Some people take that Scripture where it says if it be possible, and they say, well, see, it's not going to be possible. I'm like, wait a minute. In the beginning of the conversation, when the disciples asked Jesus, Yeshua, what's it going to be like? What are the signs going to be like when you come back? And the first thing he says is, let no man deceive you. Paul later talks about be not deceived. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, why would Yeshua and Paul both be saying, don't let people deceive you if it's not going to be possible to be deceived? It is incredibly easy to deceive.
Oh, very easy.
About anything. At this point, I did 6 months of research where basically all I did from the moment I woke up to the time I went to sleep was look into this. And at the end of 6 months, I got to tell you, man, the evidence is extremely compelling. If somebody asked me, okay, where are you on a scale of 1 to 10? If 1 is hardcore belief in the globe and 10 is hardcore belief in the snow globe, where are you? And at the time when that question was asked me a few weeks back, maybe a month or two ago, I had to say a 7.
Wow.
I got to be honest with you now, I'm probably more 8 or 9.
Yeah, and see, like, you've done a lot of research on it, and there's only so much research that we can actually do, because Antarctica, you're not even allowed to go there. For one, I was like, well, why can't somebody charter a boat and you had to get the ice crusher, get all that stuff, and go to Antarctica? You're not allowed to go there. It's completely against the law.
This is, a lot of people out there saying you can't go. You can, but you can. There was the Antarctic Treaty that was signed, and multiple nations have, a lot of nations have signed this treaty, and basically there are restrictions, and so yes, you can go there, but under the strict guidelines set forth by the treaty. And so, yes, you can go on tours, but you're only going to go where they allow you to go.
You can't just go on your own. I mean, no matter how much money you got, no matter if you got an ice crusher, no matter if you got all the things that you need to do it, you're not. And as far as sending cameras up into space, I mean, you could get a high powered balloon and send it up while it's spinning around and look, but I'm pretty sure there's restrictions against that in certain areas as well, because if it lands on somebody. And
well, actually, you'd be surprised. It's fairly easy to do it.
Really?
In fact, I'm getting ready to do a series of tests myself. I can't give a whole lot of details on it right now because we're still ironing out everything with the people that are going to be involved with it. If everybody who's right now currently saying they want to be a part of it end up being a part of it, this is going to be a really cool thing that we're going to be able to do. But basically, you have to just, it's pretty expensive to get some of these weather balloons, especially the ones that can go really high.
And then there's a spin that takes place once you get to a certain altitude that you got to.
You have to get permission, I think, with the FAA, because you have to be sure, you're not going to hit a plane, or a plane's not going to hit you. So where you're going to launch it is important. And there you can get permission to do a lot of high school kids and stuff like that. Do it for projects and whatnot. One of the guys that I'm hoping to partner with on this series of tests has the ability. He owns a video production company. He has the ability to make gimbals for cameras to keep the camera, no matter what the balloons.
Yeah, like a gyroscope on it.
Yeah, it'll keep the camera stationary, or pointed where we want it to point. And the other big problem is with the video footage that we've been seeing, because there's been lots of footage out there. The Red Bull jump, when that dude Felix guy, jumped out, and but the problem is a lot of the footage that we've seen is shot with a fisheye lens.
Yeah, and that's automatically going to give it a curve no matter what you shoot.
And the only time the fisheye lens is going to be the most accurate as far as showing you what's actually there is when whatever you're looking at, the subject is across the center of the lens. Right. And so if you look at the Red Bull jump, it's a serious distortion, because the horizon's like way above, it's at the top of the screen. Mm-hmm. So you got a major bow. In fact, it's such a curve, it's so curved that he would have to be, he was only jumping like 130,000 feet or something like that. But to have a curve that what you see on there, if that was real, he'd have to be halfway to the moon, to have that much of a curvature of the Earth. That it's a fisheye if it's at the top of the screen, it's going to look like this. When it gets to the middle of the screen, it's going to look like flat. Mm-hmm. And when it gets to the bottom of the screen, it's going to be, concave. Right, so you got convex, flat, concave, and something with shot with a fisheye lens, you'll see it morph. It's doing all kinds of stuff.
As soon as it changes views, it does that. So yeah,
it's totally crazy. Well, you do this kind of stuff. So what this guy also can create the gimbals. He's got these basically about 50 millimeter lenses that you can put on a GoPro. Mm-hmm. So basically, you can fit the GoPro with a lens that's pretty close to what the human eye is. So you're not going to get the distortion that you have with the standard lens, the fisheye lens. So, but yet we can still take advantage of the small size and everything, lightweight and all that for the camera. So we want to hook up a series of cameras looking, in multiple different directions, looking up, looking down, different ways, with 50 millimeter lenses on them instead of the fisheye on a gimbal. So that should give us a really good multi-angled view of what we're looking at. But
has that ever been done before with a gimbal like that? Because that sounds like a really good idea, because most of the videos I see, they're just going completely crazy, spinning around when they get up there.
Yeah, you get vertigo or something watching some of these videos. If it has, I'm not aware of it, because most of the videos that I've seen, like you, the camera's going spats. But I will say, I have seen footage shot at 130,000 feet with the horizon across the center of the lens, and it is flat. It is flat as a pancake. Yeah. I have seen footage from a V2 rocket shot up in the, I believe it was in the 50s, black and white footage that got to 65 miles high. And once the horizon came across center, flat.
Wow.
I saw one with, I forget the X1 or something like that, one of those early rocket planes that's dropped from a high altitude airplane, and it shoots up. One of the early test flights, Chuck Yeager type footage. Same thing, flat horizon. And I've seen footage from the Mercury program, and they were really crafty the way the video was cut, because you see the Earth's kind of, it's curved like this, but the Earth's starting to come in, and as it's coming in, it's straightening, and then they cut the video.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, obviously, if you see the way that the thing is morphing, if it would have been allowed to continue across center of the lens, you would end up with a Mercury spaceflight shot. The highest one that I've seen so far, perhaps other than the Mercury footage, was a German rocket. It was civilians sent up, I think it was last year or the year before, that had cameras on the rocket, looking different ways and looking down and whatnot. And that thing got to 161 miles high. And so the thing goes up, and it's looking down, and it's looking off to the side. And then when it kind of reaches its highest point, it starts to fall back to Earth. And as it starts to fall back to Earth, and the camera is looking out at the horizon, as that horizon goes across the center of the lens, it's flat.
Right. So,
yes, we can mock, we can laugh, we can make jokes, we can call everybody all the names we want to call them, but this is evidence that we have to deal with. At best, it's showing that photographic evidence is inconclusive for either side.
Mm-hmm.
Globalists want to say, hey, it's all the photographs proves it's a globe, and the flat earthers looking at it go, well, not really. When it goes across the center of the lens, it's going flat.
Right.
So, what other choice do we have if we can't trust our eyes and we can't trust the cameras that we're sending up? Well, then the only other thing we can do is terrestrial-based observations. And the video you were talking about earlier was Jaron Campanella. Jaronism is the YouTube channel.
Talking about the one with the laser?
Yeah, the laser.
Yeah.
This is 4 miles across, and look up the math right here. 4 miles across, and people can go to my website, testingglobe.com, and in the top menu, it says video resources, and you scroll down to the last link in that drop-down menu. It says I can see for miles and miles. I called it that because that song by The Who. In fact, if you read the lyrics of their song, I can see for miles and miles.
Yeah,
it's practically a flat earther theme song right there. But right below it is the Pythagorean calculation for how to figure out distance and curvature.
Uh-huh.
So this is not flat Earth map. No, this is math drawn up in CAD based on ball Earth mentality. Okay.
Right.
The flat earthers didn't come up with this math. This is from spinning ball people that come up with this math. And at 4 miles, the drop should be 128 inches or about 10 feet. Okay, so about 10.67 feet. So now you're on water. Okay, Jaron was across from this body of water, and they had a camera on one side, and 4 miles away they had they originally tried to shoot a laser across and see if they could see the laser. The problem is as the laser went across the 4 miles, it spread out. As it went out, it didn't maintain that. So it was huge when it got to the other side. They couldn't really do the kind of measurement that they wanted to. But then Jaron got the idea. It's like, well, wait a minute. I mean, this thing's bright enough. If we shine it on like a whiteboard or something, they should be able to see it on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
So he did. He shines this real high-powered thing onto like I don't know if it was a piece of paper or cardboard or whatever
Can't
it was.
remember either, yeah.
Like a whiteboard.
Yeah.
And they could see it. And so they kept lowering it. Well, okay, tell me when you can't see it anymore. Tell me when you can't. They got within, I think it was like an inch or two of the sand, and they could still see it 4 miles away. Yeah. Okay, so you can't argue that. Oh, I mean, this is water now. Flat water is not going to bulge, and
Right.
I mean, it's flat. I mean, yes, you might have some waves or whatnot, and that will cause a little bit of interference. But okay, this is a body of water right now, 4 miles across, and the math says that the ground that you're standing on over here should be 10 feet, or the ground over here should be 10 feet below your ability to see it.
Right.
It should be on the other side of the curve. and yet they could see the reflection of the laser about an inch off the ground when you shouldn't be. It should be 10 feet below.
Yeah, I mean that's just basic stuff. I mean, people could argue, I guess, the refraction of the light of the.
Oh, that's garbage.
You know, it's like, but yeah, I mean, a real test. I mean, that's a real test that people can do themselves. You can get those lasers now for about $60. They're
and the other guy that really caused a big uproar, and to my knowledge, he's not a flat earther. He's just a photographer who's taken some really great pictures. But this guy Joshua Nowicki snapped a picture of the Chicago skyline from the other side of Lake Michigan, over 50 miles away.
Yeah.
Some say it was 60 miles, whatever, 50, 60. At this point, it doesn't really matter, because at 50 miles, the difference is 1,667 feet, and at 60 miles, it's 2,400 feet, almost a half a mile. So the ground that Joshua Nowicki was standing on and the ground that Chicago is standing on should be about a half mile below the curvature.
Right.
The top of the Sears Tower should be something like 900 feet below your ability to see it. And yet Joshua is standing over here on the other side of Lake Michigan, and he snaps a beautiful picture of the Chicago skyline, and they submit it to, I think it was an ABC News affiliate, and the weatherman, who I'm convinced it doesn't even believe himself what he said, writes the whole thing off as a mirage. He says that the cold air coming off of the water met the warm air, and this was in the summertime, and it caused a superior mirage. Well, first of all, mirages are inverted. They're upside down. They're wavy, distorted. If you look at that picture, no. Perfectly straight up and down, symmetrical buildings with the lights on.
Yeah, I saw the picture on your webpage or on your Facebook, I believe it was. Yeah, I mean, you can tell it's a city. There's no doubt about that. Different color lights, different, everything, just.
And it's not leaning away from you on the ball,
right.
Nor is it fanning out, because the ball also goes this way. It goes this way, but also this way. There's no perception of any angle there other than perfectly straight up and down. And so part of the series of tests that I want to do, along with the weather balloon test, is go out there, because my friend Rick Hummer lives not too far from where Joshua Nowicki took the picture, and he wasn't on board with this stuff either at first. Now he's fully on board, but he said, "Wait a minute, we've all seen Chicago." And so he drove out there to go see it, to prove it to himself what he thought he already knew. And sure enough, he tells me a funny story. He said he packed his car full of all his camera gear, and he wanted to go down there and check it out, and he was real excited about it. And he got pulled over for speeding. And so the cop pulls him over, and he's got like all his camera gear and stuff, and the guy's like, what are you doing? He's like, well, you probably wouldn't believe me if I told you. And he's like, what are you talking about? He says, well, we're supposedly on there's supposedly a ball, right? And the cop's like, yeah, what are you talking about? He's like, they say the ball is 25,000 miles in circumference, right? Yeah, what are you talking about? He's like, well, we can't see Chicago then. And the cop's like, what are you talking about? I've seen Chicago plenty of times. He goes, well, I've seen it a lot too, but the math says that the top of the Sears Tower should be like 900 feet below your ability to see it. And now all of a sudden the cop's like, yeah, you're right. We should. What? He goes, tell you what, he totally forgot about giving him a ticket. Yeah. And the cop says that the park, I guess, where Joshua Nowicki took the picture was closed or whatever, and the gate was locked or whatever, but the cop had the key or something. And so Rick was telling me, the cop's like, yeah, come on, let's go check it out. So the guy, they go down there, unlock the gate, got there, and they're both standing there looking across the lake. Well, there it is. Man. And anybody that I've had interaction with that lives in that area, they're all saying we've all seen it at all different times of the year. So it's not this the cold air, warm air deal, because in the wintertime when it's cold in the air and on the water, and the visibility is even clearer, they told me. Yeah. So one of the ideas I have, and I wanted to do this in December, was charter a boat. In fact, we checked into some of the local boat clubs, yacht clubs, and whatnot, because we were going to charter a boat on a clear day when we could see it from the other side and point the camera at it and just drive right toward it. Because if it's a mirage, then it's just going to magically disappear, and then the city will roll up over the ball, and then we'll see it. But if it's not a mirage, then all it's going to do is get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger in my camera.
Right.
So we tried to charter a boat, and basically the guy said, "What do you guys have, a suicide wish. And we're like, what are you talking about? And they were saying that, the weather conditions on the lake are really bad, and it's extremely dangerous to go across during this time of the year. So, but as soon as the water calms down and the weather calms down and it's safe, that's one of the plans I want to do.
Well, let me know when you do it, man. I live not too far from Chicago, so I'll come.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
If we all got cameras rolling, then you can do sort of the over-the-shoulder.
Yeah,
you could be the reality TV guy videotaping all of us talking about what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And then we'll all pile on this boat and do it. But here's the thing. First of all, this is fun. It's exciting. It's real practical research going out and doing this sort of things. I tried to, some of the stuff, you chartering a boat and weather balloons, this stuff's expensive, buying lasers and stuff like that. So I tried to come up with the least expensive, easiest test that anybody can do. So if you, dear listener, viewer, are questioning all this or think I'm completely insane and whatever, here's a challenge for you. Go to Home Depot and buy a 4x8 sheet of plywood. Get 4 different color spray paints and spray paint 1 foot bands, lay it on its side, take the 4x8 sheet of plywood, lay it down so it's 8 feet by 4 feet high, and the bottom 1 foot paint it red. Next one, yellow, green, blue, or whatever. Paint 4 1-foot bands on the 4x8 sheet of plywood. And then go get, if you've got an iPhone, it will tell you can get apps. It will tell you your altitude, so at sea level and all that. You can test and see, and then go find someplace that's flat, that's 3 to 5 miles long. That's really all you need. Something that's 3 to 5 miles long and flat, and you can pace the whole thing out. Go, every half mile or whatever, and document: is it still flat, or is there a bow in the road, or whatever, and see if it's flat. And if it is flat, if you found a place like that, whether it's across a lake, you can guarantee the lake's going to be flat. So if you find a lake that's 3 or 4 or 5 miles across, then you can do what Jeranism did, but you don't need a laser to do it. Or if you've got the salt flats of Utah or any place else that you could find someplace in the desert of Arizona or someplace, nice straight road, flat, set the plywood up, start with 1 mile. Well, the distance at 1 mile, let's see, you should lose 8 inches. If you're standing a mile away from the board, you shouldn't be able to see most of the bottom band of color that you painted, because it should be 8 inches below the curvature. If you can see all of it, okay, go 2 miles. At 2 miles, it's 32 inches. So almost 3 feet of the board should be not visible to you because of the curve. See where I'm going with this?
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
At 3 miles, it's 6 feet. So at 3 miles, if you could go to Academy Sports and get a 100 or 150 power telescope, and those are pretty cheap. I mean, you get them $30, $50 somewhere in there, So you'll spend probably less than $100 to do this test, okay? So and if you guys do this test, please contact me, rob@testingtheglobe.com, or contact John, whatever. I'd like to see the results. Videotape it. Do the this is easy testing. If you think I'm crazy, go out and do the test.
Yeah.
Prove I'm crazy, because I know what's going to happen. You're going to see the bands, and then you're going to have to go, uh-oh. The Bible tells me I'm in a still flat world. The test I just did tell me there's no, and if people do this all over the world, then you can't say, well, that one area that you were in, a flat plateau on the ball. Yeah, it'll get a little bit more than coincidental. If everybody all around the world are doing these tests, there's no way you can say every single location is a flat plateau.
Right.
But if at 3 to 4 or 5 miles, at 3 miles, it's 6 feet is the curvature drop, which means you should be looking 2 feet above the board, which should be on the other side of the curve.
Yeah.
2 feet. You shouldn't see any color bands at all. But I know what you're going to see. You're going to see color bands. So,
yeah, I mean,
what do we do with that? What do we do with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's even if somebody, I think, absolutely proved it, unless somebody it's weird the way people think too, because unless somebody like NASA themselves or somebody came out and said it's like people wouldn't believe it. But I'm hoping people will actually listen to this whole entire show and kind of just with an open mind anyway, and just be like, you know what, it's possible. Let's check it out. Why not? Like you said, it's fun. It's fun to check stuff out like that. I mean, that's the adventure in life. Our life's short. Why sit around watching TV all the time. And I've heard people say, well, this takes away from the gospel. It's like, dude, you sit and watch shows on TV, that takes away from the gospel too. I mean, everything you do in life that's not actively preaching the gospel takes away from the gospel a little bit. But in life, you got to enjoy life too. There's a time to work. There's a time to play. There's a time for like Solomon said, there's a time for everything. And sometimes finding out the truth it's probably way more just, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but it's more productive than a lot of the things people are doing. The same people that are saying that it's taken away from the gospel or whatever. It's something interesting, and it's something new, and it's something that a lot of people haven't even ever questioned in their life. And there's nothing wrong with questioning stuff. If you don't question anything at all, you're just going to be a mindless drone, and you're never going to know anything. I mean, I thank God that I questioned just what I've been taught my whole life. If I hadn't have been questioning what was taught my whole life, I would have never known about the Torah, about what the importance of following the commandments of God is. I would have never known a lot of things. I had to start over from Genesis on. I started over and said, you know what, I'm forgetting everything that I've been taught, because I want to know what really the Bible says. Because the Bible says there's wolves in sheep's clothing. Okay, sheep's clothing is pastors. Sheep's clothing is people that are religious. It's not the Satanists down the road. Yeah, they're a wolf, but they're not in sheep's clothing. They're not there to deceive you the same way a wolf in sheep's clothing is. So this kind of stuff right here, if you want to say it's demonic or anything like that, just get off the page. I mean, altogether, because honestly, like, I don't care what you think if you think that, because this is real life looking for truth, and that's what we're here to do. So
yeah, a couple of things I'd say to what you had just said. My understanding of the blasphemy of the Holy Spirit is attributing to Satan the work of the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
When Jesus did what he did with the power of the Holy Spirit, they accused him of doing it with the power of Beelzebub.
Right.
He's like, So I would be really careful about that accusation. People out there saying things like that, because if you believe as I do, that the Bible was divinely inspired by the Holy Spirit and written by men, then this isn't a psyop by the Illuminati.
No.
If it's a psyop, it started with God, because he's the one, through the Holy Spirit, inspired the authors of Scripture to describe this place from Genesis to Revelation, mind you, as a snow globe. Okay, so yeah, I'd be real careful with saying this is demonic.
Yeah.
Because then you're gonna have to say the Scriptures are demonic, and that's scary. But on the side of this is take away from the gospel. That's an ignorant argument.
Yeah.
Very ignorant.
Very.
In fact, I created a webpage specifically to address that. And if you go again to testingtheglobe.com, and in the top menu it says One Man's Quest for Truth, scroll down and you'll see Flat Earth Testimonies is toward the bottom there. Flat Earth Testimonies. And that page right there is just, I'm telling you, it's just the tip of the iceberg. A tiny, tiny fraction of the emails that I have received and Facebook messages that I have received of people saying either that they were, I can't even tell you how many atheists have written to me, a number of them, and several of them are talk show hosts that have had me on their show and saying, you know what, because of what you've been putting out and what other people are putting out, I bought a Bible for the first time in my life. I am now believing there's because if anything testifies to a creator, it's a terrarium.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, just a protected zone, man. Only life in the world right there. There's nothing more powerful than the idea of that, really, because if you think you're just one little globe spinning out into the world and there's millions of others like it, that's kind of scary to think. It's like, maybe I am out here just floating in thin air.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for a lot of people, it has brought at the very least, it has brought the concept of God very, very close to them.
Yeah.
They're like, whoa, wait a minute, he could be literally, like it says, looking down on us. We look like grasshoppers,
Yeah.
And
that's the one question people have. What's the point in keeping us from us? It's a flat earth. And that right there is about as good a point as you can make of why they would keep it from us, because they don't want everybody to believe.
It goes back to Genesis chapter 3. People say, what's the motive? Why would NASA lie to us? Why would the government? Why would the military? Why would anybody lie to us about this? Well, you're missing the motive. You're missing the point of the motive. It goes way beyond NASA, the government, and the military. It goes to Genesis 3, where the serpent shows up and says, yeah, has God really said that?
Yeah.
Yea, hath God really said? God says we're under this firmament thing on a circular plane set on pillars. Yeah, did God really say that? I mean, that's where it goes back to. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the testimonies there and read through them, and that again, I put that up like within the first month or two at the most, of me looking into this. And if I had to put up stuff every day, this page would be huge. I got like 3 handwritten letters in the mail yesterday.
Wow.
Of people saying, wow, oh my gosh, I haven't read the Bible in 20 years. I'm now reading it again. You've opened my eyes to so much, and praise God. And,
That's
people,
awesome, man.
So I would say, if you think this is a hindrance to the gospel, you are completely clueless.
Yeah.
Because that has not been my experience. If anything, I've had, oh my gosh, the opportunities and discussions that I have had as a result of this, for people who are actually willing to have the discussion, secular, atheist, Christian, or whatever, I don't care. It drives the point home that God is very near, and He's watching, and He wants to have a relationship with you. So to me, this has been nothing but when I was doing standard evangelical mission work, just doing your typical evangelism, I saw good fruit. I've been blessed to lead a lot of people into a knowledge of a saving relationship with Jesus Christ, with Yeshua. When I left doing standard evangelical mission work to talk about aliens, UFOs, and cone heads and Nephilims, I started getting even more fruit in my basket, because that stuff started to address issues that a lot of people become. They become atheists and agnostics because they don't get very far in Genesis if they start reading the Bible, and God's saying kill everybody. He's wiping out stuff, and
wipe out kids and women and all that. You wonder what is he talking about? You're right.
This type of research explains why that was happening. And all of a sudden now he's not this crazy schizophrenic, prejudiced God into random acts of genocide, but he's just this amazing, loving, caring God who wants to protect his good creation from these abominations that were created that had only evil continually in their heart and mind. It's a whole different paradigm. So that research opened up a lot of doors and brought in a lot of fruit.
It explains evolution. It explains all mythology, almost every religion in the world. That kind of research does, because I remember studying mythology and first time I watched Zeitgeist's video, I was like, wow, what is this? And then I started seeing real research done from a biblical perspective, and from the book of Genesis, from the book of Enoch, and through people like you, honestly, people like you and L.A. Marzulli and people along those lines, that I started seeing this stuff, and I was like, because I remember the first time I read Genesis 6 with open eyes, like I told you, I had to read it. I saw that verse, I'm like, what the heck is this, dude? I can't believe I've never seen this in my entire life, and so of course the first thing I would do is I go buy the book of Enoch and I start reading that, and it's crazy, man. The truth is always good. It's always going to be good, even if you don't want it to. Nobody likes to hear their foundations cracked. If somebody came up to me today and was like, dude, your foundation's cracked, dude, I would be really upset about it. But at the same time, it's I know I got to fix it, because if not, my whole house is going to fall down. And that's the same way with the truth should be to everybody. If you see the truth, you should fix the way you believe, because you probably have more stock in the global earth theory than most of the people that are arguing with you against, because you taught about that. There's a lot of stuff that you taught, but you're willing to admit that you're wrong, which I think draws people to you more, to what you're saying more, and that's a testament to who you are. So
thank you. Yeah, for me, it's not an ego trip. I don't care. Look, we're in a day and age, especially for content producers, that unlike any other time in the past, it used to be very, very costly to be wrong, which is why a lot of the published authors will never admit it because they'd have to. I mean, you would have to spend thousands of dollars when you publish through a publisher. You got to invest a lot of money and believe in what you're writing to spend the money that you have to spend when you go through a publisher. But with Amazon, you can self-publish. If you're an author out there, I'm telling you right now, you can self-publish for $5.
Wow.
$5, which means if you're wrong about something, this is what it looks like. I correct the error. I upload a new PDF for free, and I spend $5 for the shipping and handling, and to get a proof back and say, okay, it's good. So I don't care if I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, it's going to cost me $5.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit of pride, but I don't care about that. I've already admitted on a number of things I'm wrong. So what? And DVDs are easy enough to spit out a new DVD.
Yeah.
You can use Google Hangout to make a whole new presentation. So we're in a day and age, if people are not admitting that they're wrong, it's because of pride.
Yeah.
It's because of ego. And I've debunked myself. I've produced a video, Rob Skiba debunking Rob Skiba. I'm not afraid to admit that I'm wrong if I find out that I am wrong. So
and you have to. I mean, there's no otherwise you're lying, and that's obviously wrong. I mean, to lie, it's either you become completely ignorant to the fact that you're wrong, or you find out you're wrong. You have to admit it. You have to. If you don't, then you're just a liar. So
yeah, you lose all credibility, and people. We're in a day and age, the information age, where people can find out if you're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell people all the time, if you've been to any of my lectures, you were at one of them.
Yeah.
I have a slide, and usually right after the welcome slide, that says, "Don't believe me."
Yeah.
Don't believe a thing I say. Look, listen to what I'm saying. Take notes if you want to, but go out and search it for yourself. I gave the viewers a test. Go out there with a 4x8 sheet of plywood and do the test.
Mm-hmm.
Go read the scriptures for yourself. Don't let me interpret them for you. Go read them for yourself. And then do your own investigation on the NASA photographs and videos. And, if I tell you something, you can just write it off as Rob's just a lunatic. But if you find out for yourself, well, then you're the lunatic now in your own reasening. You're like, oh no, I've become one of those guys that I used to.
Man. Because nobody's gonna like it when you sell them. You think that I don't even talk to my family about it, because as soon as I said that, my dad's like, "What?" He looked at me like I was a complete nut job. I'm like, all right, well, I'll just back off on this. But I mean, I really do I'm like you, man. I'm leaning more towards the idea that it probably is flat, because why am I mean, first off, like, why have I put so much stock in what NASA's told me? I mean, why? I mean, what do I have to gain by putting stock in? Because we know that the whole world, the prince of the power of the air, we know who that is, and we know that he controls most of the things that are NASA. He controls, the media. He controls all those things to a point to where he's kind of molded who we are. And so why would I believe that 100% when I can do basic tests to prove some of the stuff wrong? How can I 100% believe what they say? I mean, just think of that, people. I mean, think of that, and don't get mad at the idea of the flat Earth. I mean, if the people that are mad at it are actually still listening, just think about it. Why are you getting mad? Why does it really matter to you if the Earth is flat or not? I think it matters a lot as far as, like, if the Earth's flat, I think it's amazing thing, because that changes a lot of things for a lot of people.
It exposes. Well, I mean, at that point, if you're able to absolutely prove it, no questions asked, then you have the stark realization that you can never, ever again trust NASA, the government, or the military.
Never.
You can't. And you're right to say, why are we all putting so much trust in them? I'm not going to paint a broad stroke and say that everybody in these organizations are evil, Satanists, Luciferians, and liars. Right. Look, the mechanic that's building the space shuttle, the engineer that's creating the avionics or the tracking devices or the satellites, they don't have a clue.
No.
As far as they're concerned, they're building real hardware that's going to go up in space and do what they're told it's supposed to do. Yeah. There would be no reason for them, because some people say this conspiracy would have to be so huge, everybody would have to be lying. No, they wouldn't.
No, not at all.
The only one, if compartmentalization explains it all, the only ones that would have to be, quote unquote, in on it would be at the highest levels, the ones calling the shots, pulling the strings, and censoring what goes out to the public. those guys would know, and then the faces that are seen allegedly in space, which would be the astronauts.
Right.
And when you realize there's 7.5 billion people, I did a whole blog on this. I forgot the exact numbers. I have to pull it up. When you realize there's 7.5 billion people on the Earth, and then you look up how many people have actually been in space. It's a very, very small number of the population that has actually been in space. Let me see if I can find it. Probably too big a conspiracy. Yeah. Let me see if I get this number real quick. Okay. According to spaceflight.com, if we use the U.S. Air Force definition of space, then 551 people have been in space thus far. 551 people. If we use the FAI definition, then 545, and they just judge it depending on the altitude of what they consider space. So at the most, 545 people. Let's just say 551. Let's just say 560. 560 human beings, the vast majority of them from the United States and Russia. Mm-hmm. Now, would any of us say we completely trust the government of the United States or the government of Russia? No. Right off the bat, you're going to have to say no. When you realize that most of the people that were in the United States space program and the Russian program come from the military, you realize that these guys are good at keeping secrets. That's their job.
Right.
And when you take it a step farther and realize the vast majority of those people also are members of secret societies like the Freemasons,
right?
Secret societies. I mean, okay, let's put it in reality. Let's bring this, this reality home right there. This would not have to be a very big conspiracy at all. No. It would just have to be very controlled within a select group of people that get the information to you and I. We believe, we trust astronaut so-and-so. You know, he goes to my church. Well, guess what? The devil goes to your church too.
Right. And there's already people that knowingly lie about it. They say you can see a curve from the plane. They're saying that because they've heard it a million times and everything, not because it's actually true. And they're not like a part of conspiracy because they're telling you that. They just that's what they think. Yeah. So. Yeah. I mean, 560 people at the most out of 7.5 billion people in the world. This is not a very big conspiracy. No, I mean, because there's way more than that are, I'm sure, involved in the deception anyway. So, I mean, that's not a lot of people to deceive. And there's just no, I don't know. I can't remember what I was going to say now. Wow, just kind of blanked out. But I'm in the process of trying to, dude, I've been trying to get myself off of this subject. October 15th, I said, I'm done. No more. I am not. I'm done. Let whatever be will be. And I've been praying. I'm like, Lord, if this is a distraction, if I'm not supposed to be doing this, if I'm wasting my time, then please reveal that to me so that because I want to be effective for the kingdom. I don't want to be doing anything that's not effective for the kingdom. Yeah. And the more I pray that prayer, and believe me, I pray it a lot, the more I get emails, letters, and phone calls from people telling me, don't give up. You can't give up. I am a changed life because of this, So I'm going, okay, Lord, I mean, from now, at least until you show me otherwise, I'm going to continue. And the process I'm in right now is, okay, a lot of the same questions come up over and over and over again, especially the newbies. When a newbie first hear about this, they all have the exact same, I'm like, okay, you guys are like Johnny come lately. This was addressed 7 months ago, and I don't care to repeat myself. So you've got some homework to do. Go back. I didn't waste my. I didn't make almost 60 YouTube videos and over 400, 500 pages of printed content on my website. Just to hear myself talk. Just to keep answering the same question over and over again.
Go there and look it up for yourself. But I'm actually there are a lot of questions that come up. Bing, bing, bing. I'm like, okay, I want to see if I could take maybe the top 10 that come up and like put together a short list of videos that are easy to share. Like, one of the big ones. We've seen ships go over, the curve of the Earth with the hull first. That one comes up all the time. Yeah. Well, Jaron did a fantastic video on that.
I guess he's the one I saw. I thought it was you, but yeah, I think I've seen his.
I did one too early on, but he did one where he or somebody, he got footage from somebody or whatever out on a beach, like actually zooming in with somebody. And if you've got $700, go get the Nikon Coolpix 900 camera, because it's got a zoom on it. It's got the equivalent of a 2,000 millimeter lens capacity. to zoom like way in on long distance stuff.
Wow.
And so when you watch a ship go out with your eyes at about 15 miles or so, you're going to start to see it disappear a hole first. But you get this camera out or get a telescope or binoculars out, look, zoom in, well, there's the whole ship again.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. How could the whole ship be there if it supposedly went over the ball?
Right.
There's no ball to go over if you're seeing it when you zoom in. And some of these, they're zooming in when that ship's way out there.
Yeah.
So
the mathematics don't add up for what they're trying to deceive us with. So
yeah, it just doesn't. But hey, man, I'm going to have to head out. But man, this was good. Hopefully, it opened a few people's eyes if they are willing to look into this stuff for themselves.
Yeah, I hope so as well, man. I mean, I'm sure we'll get a lot of crazy comments, but I really don't care, dude. I could care less, man. I mean, that's just when you talk about subjects that are not common to the media and stuff, you're gonna get hate no matter what. So it's all good. But yeah, man, I appreciate you. I definitely appreciate you coming on, dude. Like I've been a fan of a lot of the stuff you've done for a long time, and hope to link up with you, do more in the future. So
for sure, love to do it again, man.
All right, bro. I'll talk to you later, man. Thanks again.
All right, thank you.